I have seen so many articles recently talking about the risks of ultra processed foods. I mean, it's constant. There's one from Time, there's one from Today, there's articles from JAMA, there's all kinds of things. I mean, literally, it's at least once a week. I see something talking about beware. What in the world is ultra processed food, and why is it so horrible?
Yeah, so there's something out there. It's called the NOVA food classification.
Okay.
And it has 4 levels of food processing. So it might just be helpful to kind of start there. And then Joey, if you want to cut me off or add stuff,
Sure.
it's, or whatever.
Yeah.
So the first classification, unprocessed or minimally processed foods. These foods did not undergo processing or underwent minimal processing techniques. This includes fractioning, grinding, pasteurization. And so, believe it or not, meats, fruit, bananas, oranges, pineapples, tomatoes, you name it, legumes fall into the first classification.
Okay, so something you could get at the store without any kind of packaging on it.
Pretty much, yes. The second group encompassed by processed culinary ingredients. And so these ingredients are obtained from minimally processed foods and are used to season, cook, and create culinary dishes. So salt, sugar, vegetable oils, butter, and other fats.
Okay.
Third classification, as you can see, it gets a little more intense as far as the processing procedures.
Okay, so those are the unprocessed and minimally processed. Mm-hmm. So I guess processed would be next.
Processed, yeah. So if we look at what that includes, we're looking at bottled vegetables, meat.
Bottled hang on. Bottled vegetables? Are we talking about
maybe
like canning? I was going to say pickles or...
I mean, you can still get bottled vegetables like a pickle.
Yeah, that's what we just said.
Okay.
That's true. I'm making sure I'm processing what it is we're talking about here.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So you take unprocessed foods and add sort of
a process.
Add a process to them.
Okay.
Yes.
Makes sense.
So breads, cheeses, purees, pastes, those sorts of things that have undergone, more industrialized processes.
Got it.
The ultra processed foods are the cookies, ice cream, like the ready to eat meals, soft drinks, sugary drinks,
Got it.
fast food hamburgers, chicken nuggets. Those that have, they're kind of just one step further along than the processed
You
foods.
took the processed things and then processed it some
Ultra,
more.
yeah.
And it doesn't look anything like it did when it was in nature.
Mm-hmm.
Got it. Okay, so that's what ultra processed food is. Why is it so horrible? I mean, if it's done in a clean facility and you're starting with safe ingredients, why is it not as good on the back end?
You could probably deduce from especially the last category there that it tend to be low in fiber, high in sugar, and high in calories. So that's we'll call that from a weight standpoint that those are heavy hitters. Okay.
Yeah.
And then you've got to throw in that they're typically preservative laden, dye laden, emulsifiers. Those affect your gut and your healthy bacteria in your gut, that your digestive system. There's a lot of insidious things that are in there. That doesn't mean that this given preservative consumed is going to lead to this for sure. It puts a lot of smoke, so to say. Like I said about the other thing, a lot of smoke is there when you're dealing with those foods, even beyond the obvious that I'm sure we'd all point out that, again, low in fiber, high in sugar, high in calories.
Okay, so you're saying, like, if my wife makes a loaf of bread versus if we buy it at the store, one of the big things is things like preservatives are added.
You don't
at
even
the
have
store.
access to what could possibly go in an ultra processed type of bread.
So are these the ingredients that I can't pronounce on the packaging?
Yes. And again, I'm not saying that any one of them, but even just look at a sausage, something like that. You say, all we did was add, but then there's nitrates in there. There's a little sodium nitrate. That's maybe the only actual, non-natural preservative beyond salt, but that can make the difference.
Got it.
So I just think that a lot of it does become obvious. And then there's more, I don't want to say psychological, but more insidious things that a lot of these ultra processed foods, even if, let's just say from a macro standpoint, they are designed to be healthy, like a quick TV dinner type meal.
Sure.
They tend to still be heavily laden with whether it's salt or sugar, that they end up basically kind of training your brain to like that kind of food. You know what I mean? Versus more natural food. And you start to get into those habits.
Habit forming.
Yes.
Yeah.
The quickness of it, the ease in our busy society,
Yeah.
the taste itself can definitely end up affecting what you crave and what you end up eating even more than you realize it as time goes on.
Okay. So it's the habit forming element of it is also a problem in addition to the general contents. Okay.
Yeah.
So
They're hyper flavors. You can't mimic ice cream in nature, let alone
that's a really good
a
point.
lot of sugar in something that can be pretty obvious, but even a lot of salt, even just to preserve the food. So yeah, I think the more you can go to a whole food style place, and if you're getting those kind of things, I mean, hey, I do some of those quick ready meal too, but I try to make sure that when you go to a place like Whole Foods, you can trust that a lot of the preservatives and things like that are gone.
Okay.
At least you're minimizing the issues with them, because from a macro standpoint, they're okay. And then you're limiting some of the other things that doing that isn't the end of the world. But when you go to the old school average TV dinner type food, let alone, the heavier processed junk foods,
Yeah.
that's where you get into a real problem.
Okay. All right. So what should we be eating instead? You just started to say it. So we're talking about whole foods. I mean, just theoretically as close to nature as possible. Is that the goal here?
That's definitely the goal. It's, because of the environment, it's obviously way easier said than done.
Yeah.
And they're still, like Joey said, for convenience sake, these food processes have had benefits as well.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
You know what I mean? But again, things just flip too far to one side. And it's hard, and it's ultimately not super productive just to say, hey, go buy more unprocessed foods, because then what's that saying? Then it's people need to learn a whole new set of skills potentially. They need to get better at cooking. Well, how much of these foods closer to nature and vegetables and such do I need to buy?
Right.
When I bought them in this package, it had exactly what I needed.
Right.
So I just wanted to make sure it's clear that it is still, even though we know what to do, it is still more difficult because we're inundated with it.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, ideally you start to make these changes slowly, and you start to maybe you did start with the frozen vegetables or the frozen meals, and you added some of your own spinach or bell peppers or whatever, and then slowly you just buy the frozen vegetables, but you cooked your own set of chicken, or you heated up your own tofu or whatever it is. There's ways to sort of
stagger
play
step.
both. Yes, to play both sides, because occasionally it's fine to have these foods. Again, we're never going to be able to avoid them.
Right.
And so unless we massively change the food environment, we're always going to be surrounded by them. So we might as well not fight it. Just try and, limit it. And so for some people, it's one or two times a week that they're able to, to try to limit that.
Yep.
For some people, maybe it's just a smaller amount once a day. They give themselves permission for, whatever that processed item is, whether it's a boxed meal or ice cream or whatever.
Okay. So what I think I hear you saying is, if you're eating a hyper processed meal right now, like the TV dinner, maybe try making it with frozen vegetables and fresh chicken.
Yeah, get
first.
creative. Mm-hmm.
You can have the exact same meal, but just slightly processed. And then if you can get comfortable with that, then maybe try to cut up some fresh vegetables and throw those in there instead of the frozen. And it's okay to work your way out of this.
Mm-hmm.
But freaking out and deciding you're never eating this again, I mean, that would be lovely, but sustainability over time is always the king.
Yeah. And then as you start, sharpening that cooking tool set, you just start freezing your own meals. So, so you have a little extra. It's not going to taste. I mean, I don't think that frozen meal, like my own cooked frozen meals, taste as good as if you cook them fresh.
Sure.
But having a handful of those at your disposal, if you're going to be cooking anyway, is just another example of a slow way to implement that.
Makes sense. Okay.